Good afternoon, students. Okay, today we're going to continue about the module 5. So this is a continuation of module 5. So where we're going to study about this protection. So the last class we studied about the different disk scheduling algorithms. So we studied and we also saw some examples of disk scheduling like first come first serve, then SSTF, then elevator. Last one is C lock. Okay, so all these are the some of the different disk scheduling algorithms. So what we studied the last class, which is a continuation of our module number 5, protection versus security. So that is our topic today. So protection controls the access to the system resources by a program, process, or users. Okay, so what is protection means? Protection controls the access. So controlling of access is done so through the protection. So to the system resources. Okay, so we are controlling the access of system resources through the program, through the process, or through the users. Protection ensures that only process that have gained a proper authentication from the OS can operate on. Okay, so protection ensures that only authenticated a user or authenticated the person so who is having a permission from the operating system can access, okay, can operate the operate on the different resources of the computer like memory segment, like CPU and other resources. Protection must provide means for specifying the control to be imposed. So that is a more important thing. So means of enforcing the controls, that is a more important things in the protection which must provide. Protection is an internal problem. Security, in contrast, must consider both the computer system and environmental with which the system is used. Okay, so that is all about the protection. So protection is an internal problem. Security, in contrast, must consider both computer system and environment within which the system is used. Okay, so that is about the protection. Next is called security. Security ensures the authentication of the system user to protect. Okay, that is called security. So integrity of information stored in the system. So that is also a part of security. Physical resources of the computer system, it is also a part of security. The security system prevents unauthorized access, malicious destructions, then alterations of data, accidental introduction of inconsistency. Okay, so all these are the part of the security system. Okay, next is called goals of protection. So what are the different goals of protection? So operating system consists of a collection of objects, hardware or software. So that is called operating system. Each object has a unique name and can be accessed through the well-defined set of operations. Okay, so through the well-defined set of operations only, so we can access the different objects of the operating system. Protection problem. Okay, so what is the problem of the protection? Ensures that each object is accessed correctly and only by those processes that are allowed to be allowed to do so. Okay, so that is the one of the main problem of the protection. Resources for providing the protection. What are the different resources? Sorry, what are the different reasons for providing the protection? To prevent the miscellaneous mis violation of access restriction, to ensure that each program components active in the system uses system resources only in the different ways of consisting with the policies. Okay, next is called as mechanism are distinct from policies. Different mechanisms are there. So inside the protection, so they are distinct from the policies. Mechanism determine how something will be done. So that is called mechanism. Policy decides what will be done. Okay, so that is called policy. This principle provide flexibility. Okay, this principles provides the flexibility of the protection. This is the goals of the protection. So principle of protection, a key principle for protection is a principle of least privileges. A principle of least privileges means program, user, and even the system are given just enough privileges to perform their tasks. The principle of least privileges can help produce a more secured computing environment. The operating system which follow the principle of least privilege implementation, its feature programs, system calls, and data structures. Thus, the failure of a component results in a minimum damage. Okay, so that is these are some of the principles of the production. The next principle is the an operating system also provides system call and services that allow the application to be written with the fine grained access control. Okay, so the operating system also provides a system calls. It provides the system calls and services that allow the application to be written with the a fine grained access control. Okay, with the fine grained access control, so we should write our applications. Access control provides mechanism to enable privileges when they are needed, to disable privileges when they are not needed. Okay, that is a very important access control policy. So next one, the audit trail for a privilege function access can be created. Audit trail can be used to trace all the protection security activities on the system. The audit trail can be used by the programmer, by the system administrator, or law enforcement officers. Managing the user with the principle of least privilege requires creating a separate account for each user with just a privilege that the user need. Computer implemented in a computing facility under the principle of least privilege can be limited to running a specific service, accessing a specific remote host by a specific services, accessing during the specific time. Okay, so all these are some of the important things under computer implemented in a computing facility under the principle of least privilege can be limited. Uh, Typically, these restrictions are implemented through enabling and disabling each service through the user access control list. Next is called as the domain of protection. A process operates within a protection domain. Okay, so whatever the process we are doing for protection, so it operates within the protection domain. A protection domain specifies the resource that the process may access. Okay, so what is the job of this domain is the protection domain specifies the resource that the process may access. Each domain defines a set of objects. The domain defines set of objects. The domain defines the type of operations that may be invoked on each object. Okay, so that is a main job of this domain. The ability to execute an operation on the object is an access right. Okay, so access right will be there. So what is that access right? It is the ability to execute an operation on the object. A domain is a collection of access rights. Okay, the domain is called as a collection of access rights. The access rights are an ordered pair. Okay, access rights means what? It is a pair of object name. It is a pair of right sets. Okay, for example, if the domain D has an access right, then so we can write file F, read and write. The process executing a domain D can both read and uh, write on the file F as shown in the diagram. Okay, so that is 5.9. Domain may share access right. The access right O4 print is shared by D2 and D3. Okay, so that is shown in this a small diagram. That is a system with three protection domains. The association between the process and the domain may be either static or dynamic. Okay, so the association between the process and the domain, it may be static or it may be a dynamic association. If the association between the process and the domain is a static, then the mechanism must be available to change the contents of the domain. Static means the set of resources available to the process is fixed throughout the process lifetime. If the association between the process and the domain is dynamic, then the mechanism is available to always mechanism are available to allow domain switching. Domain switching allows the process to switch from one domain to another. A domain can be realized in a variety of ways. Okay, so different variety of ways the realization can be done for the domain. First one is called as each user may be a domain, each process may be a domain, each procedure may be a domain. Okay, so we can view the each user as a domain, each process may be as a domain, each processor may be a domain. Domain structure. A protection domain specifies the resource process may access. A domain is a collection of access right, as I said, so each of which is a ordered pair of object name and a right set. Access right is equal to ability to execute an operation on the object. Access right is equal to object name and a right set, where the right set is a subset of all the valid operations that can be performed on the object. Domain also defines the type of operations that can be invoked. So that is called a domain. The association between the process and the domain may be static, as I said, and also may be dynamic. A domain can be realized in several ways. Okay, it can be realized in several ways. The first one, each user may be a domain. As I said, each process may be a domain, each procedure may be a domain. Okay, so that is the different way of realizing a domain. Next is called as access matrix. What is this access matrix? Access matrix provides mechanism for specifying the variety of a policies. Okay, different policies we can specify through the access matrix. Access matrix is used to implement the policy a decision uh, concerning protection. Okay, so that is the main aim of the access matrix. In the matrix, the row represents the domain, the column represents the object, and each entry consisting of set of access rights such as read, write, execute. In general, access I comma j is a set of operations that the process executing so in the domain can invoke the object. For example, consider the access matrix shown in the diagram 5.10. So there are four domains D1, D2, D3 and D4. The access the three objects F1, F2 and F3. The process executing in the domain D1 can be read from the file F1 and F3. So that is how this table we are creating. So that is called access matrix what we are creating. Domain switching allow the process to switch from one domain to another. Okay, so that is called domain switching. So when we switch a process one when if you switch a process from one domain to another, we are executing the operation on the object. So that is the main procedure. Next one, so we can include the domain in the matrix to control the domain switching. So that is also one of the important point. And consider the access matrix shown in the diagram. So that is 5.11. A process executing so from D2 can switch to the D3 or to the D4 also. So there is also a possible switching of process. Allowing the control changes in the contents of the access matrix entries requires three additional operations. Okay, so to allow the changes, okay, so we require three additional operations. One is called as copy, so other is called as a owner, one more is called as a control. The copy denotes the ability for one domain to copy the access rights to another domain. Next is the owner, so denotes the process executing in that domain can add or delete rights in that particular column. Control in access D comma D means a process executing a domain D can modify the row D. So that is given by this control access D comma D. The problem of guaranteeing that no information initially held in the object can migrate outside of its execution environment is called as the confinement problem. Okay, that is one of the problem. So what we face inside this information exchange. Okay, next is called as implementation of access matrix. So implementation of access matrix, the global table. A global table consists of set of ordered triplets. So domain, object, and right side. So here is how it works. So whenever a operation M is executed on the object O, so within the domain D, then the global table searches for the triplet D comma O comma R. So within M belong to R. So if the triple is found, then we allow the access operation. Otherwise, the access is denied. So and the execution condition occurs. Disadvantage of this is so the table is usually large, can't be kept in the main memory. So it is difficult to take advantages of the grouping. All if all my read an object, there must be an entry in the each domain. Access list of an object. Access list for an for objects. In the access matrix, each column can be implemented as a access list for the object. Next one, obviously, a empty entries can be described. The third point is for each object, the access list consists of ordered pair, domain comma right side. So here is how it works. So whenever a operation M is executed on the object O within the domain D, the access list is a search for an entry of D comma R1 within a M belong to R4. Or if this entry is found, then we allow the access operation. Otherwise, we check the default set. If M is default set, so we allow the access operation. Otherwise, the access is denied and the exemption condition occurs. Advantage is the strength is a control that comes from the strong the access privileges. So along with the each object, this allows the object to revoke, expand, and access privileges in the localized manager. That is a second point. Okay, so the disadvantages then. The weakness is the overhead of the checking whether the request domain appears on the access list. So there's a one overhead. Second one is the this check would be expensive and need to perform a time by object access. And next one, so is usually the table is large, thus cannot kept in the main memory. And the fourth one, so it is difficult to take advantages of special grouping objects in our domain. Next is called as capability list or domains. For a domain, a capability list is a list of objects operating along the object. So often a object is represented by a list of a physical name or address called a capability. So to execute operation M on the object O, the process executes the operation M specifying the capability for the object O as a parameter. So the capability is the access time domain. So but capability list is a never directed access by a process. Rather, so a capability list is a maintained by the operating system and accessed by the user only indirectly. The capabilities are uh, dist- distinguished from one data in a two ways. The first one is called each object has a tag. Each object has a tag denote whether it is a capability or access data. Program address space can be split into two parts. One is a part containing the normal data, other part contains the capability list. A lock key mechanism. The lock key mechanism is a compromise between the access list and a capable list. So each object has a list of unique bit patterns. Okay, that is a more important point called as the locks. Similarly, each domain has a similarly a unique pattern, so called as keys. Okay, then a process execution of a domain can access an object so only if that domain only if the domain has a key that matches only uh, of the lock of the object. So that is called as a key lock mechanism. So the access control of this key lock mechanism is as shown in the diagram, role based access control. So in Solaris, so that is protection can be applied. That is protection can be applied to a non-file resources. Solari 10 provides the role-based access control. So to implement the least privileges, privilege is a right execution system. So call or use an option within the system call. Privilege can be accessed by the process. So user assigns role gathering, access privileges, and programs. So next one is called as revocation of access rights. So what is this access right means? So the in a dynamic protection system, we may sometimes need to revoke the access rights to the objects shared by the different users. Following questions about the revocation may arise. The first is called immediate versus delayed. Next is called as a selective versus general. So next is called partial versus total. Next is compare versus permanent. So next is requisite and black pointers. So induction and last one is called as a keys. Okay, so all these are some of the revocation access rights. Okay, so this module 5 will continue in the next class, that is the Linux systems. Okay, so thank you students, thank you for